Who were Jacob and Esau in the Bible? Jacob and Esau, born to Isaac and Rebekah, and grandsons of the venerable Abraham, who had a divine covenant with God, hold a significant role in the divine plan to nurture a chosen nation. Abraham, a descendant of Noah, received God's command to leave his family and relocate to Canaan with the promise of blessings for his lineage. Isaac, born when Abraham was well into his centenary years, wedded Rebekah at the age of 40. Much like his father, Isaac led a nomadic life in tents, herding and moving to available fields. Similar to his parents' struggles, Isaac and his wife faced challenges in conceiving. Following fervent prayers, Rebekah eventually gave birth to twins, Esau and Jacob. Even before Jacob and Esau emerged into the world, signs of future complications were evident. Rebekah felt the unborn babies jostling each other within her in Genesis 25, verse 22. When she inquired of God about this phenomenon, his response foretold that her sons would become the founders of two distinct nations. Furthermore, it was revealed that one of the sons would be stronger, and although the other would be the older of the two, he would ultimately serve the younger one. This rivalry persisted from the moment Jacob and Esau were being born. Esau emerged first, followed by Jacob, who grasped his brother's heel. Right from birth, it was evident that the two brothers would have strikingly different appearances. Esau had a ruddy complexion, and his entire body was covered in a dense coat of hair. He grew up to become a skilled hunter, a man of the outdoors, and his father's favored son. On the other hand, Jacob was a simple man, a shepherd who lived in tents, Genesis 25, verse 27, and was his mother's favorite. The deal. Evidently, Jacob and Esau were destined to be markedly dissimilar individuals from their very conception, a circumstance that had the potential to lead to complications if not handled with care. The additional layer of complexity arose from their parents' favoritism, Isaac favoring Esau and Rebekah favoring Jacob. Jacob, however, possessed a shrewd and cunning nature, demonstrating a readiness to exploit situations to gain an advantage over his brother. On a particular occasion, Esau returned from an unsuccessful hunt, weary, tired, and famished, and implored Jacob, saying, "Feed me with that same red stew, for I am exhausted," in Genesis 25, verse 29 to 30. Cognizant of his brother's disposition, Jacob made an offer, suggesting, "Sell me your birthright today." This birthright held a distinct honor as the older son, entitling Esau to a double portion of their father's inheritance. However, Esau displayed little regard for spiritual matters, as the writer of Hebrews described him as a profane, godless individual in chapter 12, verse 16. Esau agreed to the proposal, remarking, "I am on the verge of starvation and death. What good is this birthright to me?" While it was clear that Esau was not truly on the brink of death from missing this single meal, his willingness to part with his birthright illustrated how little value he placed on it. The conflict between Jacob and Esau reached a critical juncture as Isaac advanced in age, his eyesight failing and his awareness of his limited time on earth growing. It was at this moment that he tasked Esau with preparing a meal of wild game, with the promise of granting Esau his blessing in return. This blessing held distinct significance apart from Esau's birthright and carried profound and enduring implications. It pertained to the question of which of the two sons would inherit the mantle of Abraham, thereby continuing the covenant established by God, which had promised Abraham numerous descendants and a multitude of blessings. Encouraged by Rebekah, Jacob adopted a disguise that mimicked the hairy texture of Esau's skin and approached Isaac, impersonating his brother. Isaac initially found the situation perplexing, as this man's speech resembled Jacob's. Nevertheless, he decided to rely on the tactile evidence of his hands. In doing so, he bestowed his blessing upon Jacob, a blessing encompassing several promises. an abundance of food from the land, authority over other people, supremacy over his brothers, and respect from his mother's relatives, and the assurance that those who cursed him would themselves be cursed, while those who blessed him would likewise receive blessings. Shortly thereafter, Esau arrived, and the situation became evident, revealing Jacob's actions. Isaac informed Esau that he couldn't bestow the blessing upon him, and when Esau sought some form of blessing and tears welled up, Isaac uttered the following words: "Your dwelling will be away from the earth's richness, away from the dew of heaven above. You will live the sword, and you will serve your brother. But then you will grow restless. You will throw his yoke off your neck," reads Genesis chapter 27, verse 39 to 40. It's unclear whether this was intended as a reprimand for Esau or a prediction of what would naturally unfold after Jacob had received the blessing. In any case, Esau remained resentful and harbored intentions of harming Jacob after their father's passing. Thankfully, Rebekah discovered his plot and persuaded Isaac to send Jacob away, ostensibly to seek a spouse among her own people. In the ensuing years, Jacob encountered a series of peculiar and remarkable incidents. In the early stages of his journey, he had visionary dreams while asleep, one of which featured a ladder reaching up to heaven, Genesis chapter 28, verse 10 to 22. Upon arriving in his mother's homeland, he encountered his uncle Laban, and labored for Laban for 7 years in exchange for the hand of Laban's daughter, Rachel. However, due to some deception orchestrated by Laban, Jacob ended up marrying Leah, Rachel's sister, first, and was compelled to commit an additional 7 years of labor to finally wed Rachel. Following the birth of her first son, Joseph, Jacob contemplated returning to his homeland, but Laban persuaded him to prolong his stay. Jacob's departure was prompted when it became apparent that Laban's sons harbored resentment towards him. With the livestock, servants, his 2 wives, and the 11 sons born to him through these wives, Jacob embarked on the journey back to confront Esau in his homeland. What happened between Jacob and Esau when they reunited? Following his departure from Laban, Jacob dispatched envoys to Edom, where Esau had established himself. Upon their return, these messengers brought the unsettling news that Esau was on his way to meet Jacob, accompanied by 400 men. Fearing that this assembly might be an armed force intent on harm, Jacob sent a gift of livestock to Esau and cautiously began shifting his party to a location suitable for their meeting. As his entourage crossed the Jabbok River, Jacob chose to send his family and possessions ahead, allowing him to spend a night alone. During that solitary night, a mysterious figure materialized, and a wrestling match ensued. Jacob clung tenaciously to this man, refusing to release him until receiving a blessing. The enigmatic figure disclosed that Jacob had wrestled with God himself, as depicted in Genesis chapter 32, verse 24 to 32. The following day, Jacob rejoined his party and spotted Esau's arrival. Taking a strategic approach, Jacob positioned Leah and her children at the forefront of his group, while placing Rachel and Joseph at the rear. He then advanced toward Esau in a posture of humility. Jacob approached slowly, bowing, while Esau, in contrast, rushed to meet him and warmly embraced his brother. Their reunion brought tears to both of them, and Esau inquired about the animals Jacob had sent ahead, asserting that he did not require such a gift. Despite Esau's reluctance, Jacob insisted that he accept the gift before they parted ways. Jacob continued his journey deeper into Canaan, where he acquired land and settled, naming it Elohe Israel. Undoubtedly, the relationship between Jacob and Esau stands out as one of the more colorful narratives in the Bible. These twins were perpetually embroiled in conflict, with Jacob frequently emerging victorious over his elder sibling. It may lead one to question why Jacob, who exhibited manipulative and self-serving behavior, is considered the hero of faith in this story. Both Jacob and Esau played pivotal roles in the formation of nations. Jacob's name was changed to Israel by God in Genesis chapter 32, verse 28, and he became the patriarch of the 12 tribes of Israel. The genealogy of Christ can be traced back through Isaac and Jacob, as indicated in Matthew chapter 1, verse 2, which reads, "Abraham was the father of Isaac, and Isaac the father of Jacob, and Jacob the father of Judah and his brothers." Meanwhile, Esau's descendants became the Edomites. Edom later became a nation that posed challenges to and plagued Israel, and ultimately faced divine judgment, as we learn in Obadiah chapter 1, verse 1 to 21. Jacob and Esau present starkly contrasting figures. Esau, in his disregard for God's laws, married women from outside of Israel and showed little regard for his birthright. It was part of God's divine providential plan that Esau was excluded from the lineage leading to Christ. Instead, God selected Jacob, who, despite his imperfections, remained faithful to carry forth the promise made to Isaac and Abraham. Despite their respective imperfections, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob ultimately demonstrated righteousness by honoring God in their deeds. God's covenant was unwavering. He intended to shape his people through their lineage and, ultimately, bring his son into the world through this chosen family. The story of Jacob and Esau offers valuable lessons, but perhaps the most significant is the message of hope and divine redemption. It is truly remarkable to witness the transformation and reconciliation of these estranged twins. As Jacob embarks on the journey to reunite with Esau, Genesis 33, a noticeable shift occurs in his character. He is no longer driven solely by self-serving motives. In anticipation of their meeting, Jacob humbly prays, acknowledging his unworthiness of the kindness and faithfulness shown to him, and expressing concerns for the safety of his family. Genesis chapter 32, verse 10 to 12. Over the years, God has molded Jacob into a man with a repentant spirit and genuine care for his family, a far cry from the self-centered manipulation of his youth. Similarly, Esau also undergoes personal growth. Initially, upon losing his blessing, he harbored murderous intentions toward his brother, which understandably made Jacob apprehensive about their reunion. However, when Esau finally approaches Jacob, there is no trace of animosity or resentment. Esau ran to meet Jacob and embraced him. He threw his arms around his neck and kissed him, and they wept. Genesis chapter 33, verse 4. While the specifics of Esau's life during those intervening years are not detailed in Scripture, it is evident that God had softened his heart, transforming the desire for revenge into a deep well of compassion. Contrary to a common misconception, forgiveness does not negate the past wrongs. Depending on the circumstances, restitution may not always be possible, as was Jacob's intent with his offering of livestock. However, this does not diminish the importance of repenting for our own wrongdoings, forgiving those who wronged us, and striving for reconciliation. In some cases, we may discover that just when it seemed someone was indifferent to forgiveness, they were actually prepared to extend grace and bridge the divide. Lastly, it's important to note that God often operates in ways that defy conventional norms. By selecting Jacob, the younger brother, as the instrument for his redemptive plan, God goes against the grain of worldly expectations. This pattern is consistent throughout the Scriptures. He stands as an unlikely hero, much like Moses, David, Rahab, Ruth, Peter, and Paul. God frequently chooses what the world regards as weak to showcase his own surpassing power. In the end, salvation doesn't hinge on our skills or mastery, but on our response to the gracious invitation of our ever-loving Lord. As we contemplate how God works through Jacob's imperfect and tumultuous experiences, it prompts us to reflect on the potential presence of God in our own life circumstances. Jacob's journey of redemption serves as an encouragement for us to consider the possibility of God operating beyond our worldly expectations. Could there be blessings emanating from unexpected sources in our own lives?